Camden is a really great place. It has a lot of good people in it, a lot of great families. I do think that Camden is rising, but I do think that Camden needs an uprising. And in that uprising, I think that it has to be more about the community and the people who live within the community. Right now, it seems that the community is under siege. If you go down any major corridor in the city, you can see a lot of unhealthy activity going on, prostitution, drug dealing, drug usage, overdosing. You see encampments of homeless people. It's just very unhealthy for the community, and the people who live here and work here have to deal with that on a regular basis. There's an abundance of trash all around the city, overgrown lots, and there's not a lot of businesses and or places for people to go to find food. There's a lack of healthy places for people to go and find groceries for their families. There's definitely not enough stores for people to go to shop to get the basic necessities like clothes, like shoes. To stay in Camden, you always have to spend your money outside of the city, and that really does not help the economics for small businesses and for people to be able to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. So we definitely need more resources available in the hands of the people who want to rebuild and continue to build the middle class. I would honestly say that if you start to look at the numbers in voting, a lot of the resources have gone to spaces where the vote is a little higher and the turnout of voters are a little higher. The politicians that care about the numbers and voting, they definitely cater to the neighborhoods and communities that vote. And to the neighborhoods and communities that don't vote, they get the least resources. And unfortunately in Camden, that ends up being some of the browner communities. You can drive down the Mount Ephraim corridor or the Broadway corridor and you'll know what I mean immediately. Because you'll see how there has really not been a lot of investment in those areas, but there's not a lot of people voting sometimes in those neighborhoods and communities. So voting is extremely important, and we need to get more people in our communities voting, but for the right candidates and the right people who are not afraid to do the right thing. I think Camden is the city that has the resources, and that's why so many people are here. We have a lot of people coming here to take resources outside of the city. But I would honestly say, what Camden needs today is, businesses and investment and people who want to open up businesses, who want to live and work within this community. We need more housing so that people who are middle class can stay here if they want to. We have to have places for people to be able to raise and let their family grow up. But we still need more resources in public safety. People don't feel comfortable sitting outside of their houses. You can come outside. You don't see a lot of people sitting outside of their homes. And I think that we need to invest more in the right public safety design to make people feel more comfortable and safe in their own neighborhoods so that they can come outside. But I think people don't come outside because when you come outside, what you have to see makes you want to run inside. So, we have to start holding some of these other cities accountable for dealing with their people who are addicted to drugs. We have to hold them accountable to managing their homeless crisis instead of sending people to Camden. We already don't have enough resources to deal with our people who need housing and need assistance, but we definitely are overrun by our suburban towns who want to send all of their problems here. It's really hard to find places for people who are poor in a lot of these other cities. So they've concentrated the poor in one city and they've take all the resources out. A lot of people don't pay a wage tax. They come through, driving through our roads, never really put a lot of money in. They take really big checks. A lot of people are making really good money. Those high salaries that they make in those suburban towns come mainly out of Camden. A lot of those big companies, when they say that they created thousands of jobs, they're not mainly going to Camden residents, the highest paying jobs. Camden residents will get a few of those jobs, but very few. Those high paying jobs are going back into the suburban towns that are not investing anything into Camden. So I do think that, we need to just make some of the suburban towns more accountable for the resources that they pull out of the city. And we need to make them start pushing resources back into the city and working collaboratively with government, again, to just come up with some great policies that'll allow for their poor people to get services, but within their towns, so that Camden can get back to giving their resources to the people who are from Camden. We definitely have to start paying a lot more attention to our youth and fix the educational system. A lot of our youth are graduating with a diploma and still having a hard time with literacy and skill building or finding a job afterwards because of the education that they received while they were here in the city of Camden. I know that that's an extremely controversial topic for a lot of folk, and we have a lot of smart and talented youth in our city, but they're not, able to make ends meet once they become into adulthood. A lot of them end up going to college, many finish, but a lot don't. Sometimes they end up coming back and they are unable to find a good job that they thought would be waiting here for them in this city, and then they end up leaving. And so in Camden, our city really has very young people or people who are in their senior population. We don't really keep people in the mid of their life, and you really need that to turn around the city, but we haven't invested a lot in our youth. This city, almost 60% of the population is, under 26. And the city of Camden wasn't even, up until recently, spending about $200K per year annually on that population. They just started investing a little bit more. And so we're still not even spending $1 million a year in youth. But the majority of our city is youth. So it's something backwards happening in policy making and decision making. And the people who are in elected office should definitely be doing something about that, as well as the schools, making sure that we make the right investments in families, that students have aftercare programs and tutoring programs when our kids are behind or their literacy rates aren't where they need to be. There's been a lot of investment, but we need more investment. And as we know, over the last few years with COVID and a lot of our families, immigrant populations not receiving certain resources, we need those resources to exist within our community so that kids, can come home and get the same wraparound services that they potentially can receive in school, like mental health services. But if we don't invest in our youth in the city, I don't think that we're going to build the Camden that we want. Once our seniors retire, the youth have to come in and take over. And if they're not properly trained to be able to take over those positions, then who will fill them? And I think that that's the reason why a lot of companies that have hiring signs up right now, they're having a hard time filling those seats. A lot of those youth feel disconnected from those companies. They weren't hiring Camden residents. They didn't train the youth. They didn't connect to the youth. They were scared to be within our communities, yet they worked in our communities. They drive past the neighborhoods, opposed to going in neighborhoods, and they think that there's something wrong with a lot of the people who live here, but we're just like them, living in Camden, wanting the same type of lifestyle and opportunities for our families. But our youth sometimes get the short end of the stick, and it starts with the investment from government and the people in political office who are not putting the dollars where they should and ensuring that the youth have the resources that they need to build up and become productive adults. A lot of our youth don't even get access or to some of these companies that are in our city so that they can know what they want to be when they grow up. That has to change. Another thing that has to change is, the way and the appearance of our communities. When you drive in, as soon as you get off, the first thing that you see on Atlantic Avenue is somebody asking for money, or you see trash or people laying around in the street or people shooting up with drugs. That image of the city doesn't really show that Camden is rising. It shows the opposite. And for the people who live here who have to get off those exits every single day, it definitely is depressing and is demeaning. And that's what people have to look forward to when they want to just come home from work after a very long and hard day. They have to look at that every day, and it takes something away from you the more you have to look at that. And so our communities deserve better. They deserve more. And they deserve leaders who are going to challenge the status quo. And we have a lot of residents in the city who have been committed to that, and they've been giving their all, trying to work with government, trying to work within the confines of the rules, and they still are not met with their efforts by government.